So King Charles and Queen Camilla are currently visiting Australia. It is the King's first visit to the country since he became the head of state in 2022. Their 6-day visit to the Commonwealth country has involved meeting political and community leaders. Now, it hasn't all been smooth sailing for the monarchs. An Australian senator heckled King Charles, accusing him of genocide after he addressed Australia's Parliament House, yelling, "He's not of this land." Lydia Thorpe, an Aboriginal woman, interrupted the ceremony in the capital of Canberra by shouting for about a minute. Actually, you might have seen this on the news. It took a while for her to be escorted away, I must say. They took their time. She got a minute out after making claims of genocide against our people. She was also yelling, "This is not your land and you are not my king." Now, an Aboriginal elder by the name, they call her Auntie Violet Sheridan, who had earlier welcomed the King and Queen, said that Thorpe's protest was disrespectful, adding, "She does not speak for me." But of course, I suppose the elephant in the room is that the King and the Queen are not coming to New Zealand. We are 3 hours away. And it does seem a little strange that they have not added New Zealand onto the tour. Could be money, surely not. Peter Hamilton spent 35 years working behind the scenes to advance New Zealand's interests overseas as a diplomat. He's held posts in Fiji, Canada, Geneva, Samoa, Germany and Singapore, and rose to become Deputy Secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade. He has some strong feelings on the impact of King Charles's decision to bypass New Zealand, and he joins me now. Peter, good afternoon.
Oh, good afternoon, Leah. Kia ora.
Lovely, kia ora. Lovely to talk to you. Now, no British monarch has visited our shores for 22 years, so surely it would have made sense if the King was travelling through the Pacific to come to New Zealand. Why do you think he decided not to? And are there any ramifications?
Look, I think, to be fair to King Charles, it's a health matter. I think he's in Australia currently until tomorrow, then he's flying to Samoa. And I think on doctor's orders, he's been told to cut back on international travel. He's only really making a short stop in Australia for a couple of days' rest and relaxation, filled with a reception in Sydney and Canberra. I think it's his illness, basically. And so while it's disappointing in the sense that our head of state hasn't been here for over 22 years, I do think it's his health that's the problem. Normally he would come after a coronation and spend, as his mother did, a matter of weeks in Australia and some weeks in New Zealand touring and meeting everybody. Charles is not well enough to do that, and the question arises whether he's ever going to be able to do that in that role. So it does give rise to the question: what is the point of having a head of state who is absent from us and actually in the role of head of state never comes here and hasn't been here for 22 years? That's why we're arguing that we should transition our role of the Governor-General to that of our own head of state.
And let's look at that, Peter, because, all national and global roles in respect of New Zealand, as you've pointed out, falls to our Governor-General, Dame Cindy Kiro. Yet she's not accorded the status of head of state. Can you explain for the listeners the disadvantages this poses?
Yes, I mean, it is. In having the discussion about transitioning the office of Governor-General into our head of state, there is some confusion and misunderstanding about their respective roles. What does an actual head of state do? What does the Governor-General do? And what's the difference between that and the Prime Minister of the day? So we need some clarity around that. Now, the head of state represents your country above the level of politics, if you like, embodies the persona of the country, and that's what every head of state around the world does, except in our case, we don't have a head of state who lives among us. It's an absent head of state. And the Governor-General, of course, is appointed by the King to represent him, or at least she was appointed by Queen Elizabeth to represent her in New Zealand. Now, Dame Cindy Kiro is actually doing all the work that a head of state would do, but isn't accorded the respect and status, and indeed the mana that should go with the head of state role. If you've seen what she's been doing this week, she's been up in Niue and was there commemorating 50 years of self-government in Niue and free association with New Zealand. So here was New Zealand's Governor-General doing what the British monarch should be doing as head of state of Niue, and of course is unable to do that. Now, it is an anomaly because most British people would never have heard of Niue, and the idea that the King of England, the King of the United Kingdom, has time to visit these far-flung outposts of the former empire, of course, is a total anomaly. So because Cindy Kiro does this work so well, and all our previous governors-general have done it very well, we argue that they, in fact, should have the status that goes with the office. It's important, though, to recognise we're not cutting links with the British royal family in the sense the king remains head of the Commonwealth and still comes to this part, as he's going to Samoa this week as head of the Commonwealth. He's still a welcome visitor in Australia and New Zealand, but he doesn't then have to fulfil the function of trying to be our head of state, which he can't now in this modern day and age, cannot fulfil the role of head of state in 14 other countries, in addition to the UK. Being King of the United Kingdom is more than a full-time job.
Yes. Are you suggesting then that the King would still be the head of the Commonwealth but not be the head of state? Or are you still saying that we are mature enough to become a republic and cut ties completely? What way are you saying?
Yes, this is where it gets confusing. People say, I don't want to be a republic, we'd have to leave the Commonwealth. That's not correct. There are 54 countries in the Commonwealth. Most of them are already republics. Only about 13, 14 still have the British monarch as head of state. So we would not be cutting ties with the British royal family, who would continue in the role as head of the Commonwealth. We would merely be making our Governor-General our own head of state, so that the British monarch doesn't have to concern themselves with the business of trying to pretend that they can adequately be head of state in New Zealand, Australia, Canada, and other places, when, of course, in this day and age, they can't. So we remain in the Commonwealth. The King is head of the Commonwealth. He's still a welcome visitor here, but we have a Governor-General transitioned into that of our head of state, and in future chosen by, we're saying, by a supermajority of Parliament. A lot of people are concerned about, well, if we leave the British monarch as the head of state, what replaces it? And this is where you need a national debate in New Zealand about the issues. A lot of people think, oh my God, I don't want to get rid of the king. We might end up with a Donald Trump. And that's the sort of natural gut reaction to the whole issue. But the way you appoint your head of state in New Zealand is not an executive role like Trump is. It's a non-ceremonial role. It's a apolitical, non-political role, and we're saying that there are plenty of good New Zealanders, as we've seen with our previous governors-general, who can do the role adequately. And we have to trust our parliamentarians to come up with good people to fill the role. And in order to make sure it's not political in New Zealand, we make sure that the person is chosen by a supermajority, say 75% of members of Parliament, which makes very clear then you have to have cross-party support for the person.